The choice for MVP right now, according to the betting odds, is Aaron Rodgers. He is now the only one in negative territory at PointsBet, which means, and I think the odds are minus 220, which would mean you have to bet $220 to win 100. Everybody else is in plus territory. Jonathan Taylor is the second on the list. And, this is no surprise. The Packers are the 1 seed. They likely will be the 1 seed. Rodgers has had a very good statistical season. He's had some clutch performances. Yes, he had the COVID positive, and he missed a game over it, and they lost that game. But, I said all along, if they recover from this and they're the 1 seed, that's not going to matter. If it keeps them from getting the 1 seed, then that's its own punishment. It's not that he's not the MVP because he got COVID and he said some kooky things about it. It's because his team wasn't the number 1 seed. If the team's the number 1 seed, all is necessarily forgiven and forgotten. And I think right now it would be a surprise if he's not the MVP for the 4th time in his career, Charean.
No, I think it would be a huge surprise. To me, the second candidate is Brady, and you look at them side by side. I mean, Aaron Rodgers leads with 33. He has 33 touchdowns, only 4 interceptions. Brady leads with touchdowns with 37, but he's thrown 11 interceptions. And Rodgers leads with 110.8 passer rating. And as you said, they're going to be the number 1 seed more than likely. So if they get the number 1 seed, I don't know that there is another candidate. I agree with that. I mean, Patrick Mahomes has 33 touchdowns as well, as you pointed out. But he has those 13 interceptions. And there have been times this season when you've watched him play and you're like, what's wrong with Patrick Mahomes? You haven't said that about Aaron Rodgers. Every time you watch him play, he looks like Aaron Rodgers. He looks like the MVP that we saw last season. He's the same guy. To me, the most interesting award right now is Offensive Player of the Year. Because is it Cooper Kupp or is it Jonathan Taylor? And I'm surprised that Cooper Kupp, and I know... And I agree with you. But here's my problem with Jonathan Taylor. He's not the best back in the NFL. People say, he's the best back in the... No, Derrick Henry's the best back in the NFL. It took Jonathan Taylor 2 weeks to pass Derrick Henry in rushing yards. 2 weeks after Derrick Henry was injured. Sonny Michel has the most rushing yards in the month of December over Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's second. I realize he's been really, really good. He's a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year, but in my mind, he's not a candidate for MVP. I think it's one of those quarterbacks, and the best quarterback right now and through this season has been Aaron Rodgers.
There are very few things of which I'm sure as it relates to the final 2 weeks of the NFL season. One thing of which I'm certain is that the Rams will get Cooper Kupp one or both of those all-time records, whether it's 149 receptions set by Michael Thomas 2 years ago or 1,964 receiving yards set by Calvin Johnson 9 years ago. One or both of those will go down because that's the Rams' vibe. And I'm not being critical, but if any team out there that would go out of its way to throw some sizzle onto the steak, it's going to be the Los Angeles Rams. And it's not like it's some gratuitous thing. He's the key piece of their offense anyway. It all runs through the passing game with passes thrown to him. It felt like he had a quiet game against the Vikings, and he still had, 10 catches for 109 yards. So I think they're going to keep moving in that direction. He'll set one or both records, and that makes him the Offensive Player of the Year. And look, does he have a shot? I think his only shot at MVP is if the Rams end up with the 1 seed. It's going to take the Packers stumbling and not being the number 1 seed. If they're not the number 1 seed, then I think Aaron Rodgers isn't the MVP. That's going to be the key. So if they would lose to the Vikings this weekend, they've got the Lions Week 18. They lose to the Vikings, that opens up the MVP race going into the final week of the season, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Mike. And you talk about Cooper Kupp. Some people are going to have a problem voting for Cooper Kupp because they're going to say, well, Jerry Rice never won MVP, greatest receiver and one of the greatest players in NFL history, didn't win the MVP. Why would we give it to Cooper Kupp? And I guarantee you there will be people that say that and not vote for Cooper Kupp because Jerry Rice never won the award.
Hey,
I think Cooper
Charean,
Kupp is going to win Offensive Player. Yes.
Anyone that would say that should have their vote removed. Anyone who would say that just because there's never been an MVP and Jerry Rice wasn't MVP, Cooper Kupp can't be, and no other, by implication, no other receiver ever can be. I mean, Jerry Rice never set the single-season receiving record. He never set. Did he set the single-season yardage record? Okay, this guy may set both. So and there he is at 25-1. He's crept down from 100-1 to 40-1 to 25-1. But I'm telling you, give me names. If you know of any voters who would make that argument, I'm going to report them. Well, I'm not going to, but they shouldn't have votes. Every time I see the list of the people, you deserve to have a spot on there. There are plenty of people who have those votes that don't deserve them, and anybody who would make that argument does not deserve to have one of those votes, because that is a fallacious argument, and I can't believe I'm so triggered by it. I don't really care about that award enough to be upset about it, but it upsets me to think that just because Jerry Rice didn't win it, anyone would even consider not voting for another receiver.
Well, and here's the thing. The MVP has turned into such a quarterback vote. When you look at no receivers have ever won that award. The last running back to win it was Adrian Peterson. So it has turned into a quarterback vote, and then people look at the Offensive Player of the Year and go, okay, who's the best receiver, who's the best running back? And those are the two candidates for the Offensive Player of the Year award. That's what it has become. And I don't know that it should be that way. There certainly are running backs. Derrick Henry is a prime example of that. And I think he would have been a candidate for the MVP award if he had stayed healthy the way his season was going. But he didn't. So I think we should consider all the players. I don't think it necessarily has to be a quarterback. Yes, the quarterbacks are the most important player on the team. And generally that team that wins the 1 seed, that's the guy you look at. But you're right. If the Packers lose this week, I think you've got to look at Cooper Kupp as a potential MVP candidate.
The best season that Jerry Rice had was 1987, and I've done some quick research on that. John Elway was the MVP.
Elway, yeah.
It looks like that maybe Montana and Rice split votes, which I think was one of the potential problems for Kupp before Matthew Stafford had his 3-interception game on Sunday against the Vikings. I'm not as worried about the two of them splitting votes, but Montana won a couple of MVP awards during Jerry Rice's heyday, and that's one of the reasons Rice didn't win it. Because whenever you have a receiver that has a really special season that would put him in position to be the MVP, the guy who's throwing him the football most likely had an even more special season because he's throwing it to other guys and he's amassing even more stats. And I think that becomes a practical impediment. There was talk of Antonio Brown in 2017 potentially being the MVP. That was back before we realized a lot of things about Antonio Brown, frankly. Not that it would have affected his eligibility to be MVP, but that's why the receiver has never won it. A tight end has never won it because it's going to go to the quarterback if it's driven by performance in the passing game.
Yeah, and that's exactly right, Mike, and it's a great point because he is going to throw to other players too, and those stats are only going to go up. And, you go back to A&M when Johnny Manziel won the Heisman, I think Mike Evans had as good a case as Johnny Manziel had because Manziel would throw it up to Mike Evans, and he made the catches. He made Manziel look great, but Manziel was the quarterback and ended up winning it. So that happens in the NFL. The quarterback is going to take votes away from the receiver, and you saw that with Montana and Rice, and it's a great point.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.